Hey everybody, welcome back to Ugly Speed Shop. I'm home, so it's time to unload this Camaro. So let's get to it. Right, so first things first, we gotta get this thing open, get the power turned on. I already put the winch in. I didn't show that on video, but so I just gotta attach that, attach it to the car. See if I can push it off here, or I might have to tip it up to see if we can get it off. So let's do that quick. My son, with his new job, they use these ratchet straps all the time. He showed me a way of doing this. I'm still not sure how it works, but he says you just pull it out, and I don't know. But I'll figure that out when the time comes. But those didn't move the entire trip, so however he did that, it works to keep those straps from flopping around. So as I just discovered, I see how my son did this. So basically, he loops it through there, pulls this through. It seems a lot easier on the other side. How do you do that? Pops that off. Oh, you pop this part off right here. And then it loops through. And that's it. So you just roll it up and loop it through there in the center. Another thing I noticed is these are really tight, which is awesome because they didn't move at all. But sometimes they're so tight you can't get them off. But what you can do, and it's basically the same kind of pop you're going to get either way. You stick a screwdriver in here, and you want to release this lever right here off of it, and it takes the tension off of it just the same. That's one way of doing it too. Quicker way. There's other ways you can do a little more safer, but that way it works for me. All right, there we have her all unloaded. I gotta move her around a little bit because I'm gonna put her back in the corner here in the long-term projects. Move the Firebird back out or over, one of the two, but. So yep, she's unloaded. Now it's time to troubleshoot, and I'm gonna show you one of the problems. Down here, see the wire? Somehow that wire and this wire loom got wrapped around the wheel for the ABS sensor. I'm thinking maybe that might be part of the problem. It pulled on the body harness somehow and loosened something up, and that's why it ain't running and starting. I don't know. I'll figure it all out. But that's what we're going to be troubleshooting at. Fun times. Wiring. All right, so I got the Camaro over into the long-term project spot. I used my wheel dollies to move it over here. So first thing first I'm going to do is, you see the battery is pretty much new, but it's dead. So I'm going to charge the battery up. I'm probably disconnected from the car too. Oh yeah, I did pull the ABS wire out. It plugs in up in here, up in this area here. And I just unplugged it and removed this one piece of it. I'll dig a little deeper into that later. So we can charge this battery. I'm going to go ahead and use this new one I bought. Thinking it was a jump pack, but it's not. See, I also got these little to help charge the battery. So you have to try to figure out a way of putting something in there to put it on there. So I'm gonna get this on the charger. All right, so I don't know if I can see that little flashing light right there. It's a bad battery alert. So this is bought last year at Walmart. It's only a 1-year warranty. Yes, I bought the cheapest one they had because it was cheap. But yeah, it's already dead, so that's awesome. Problem number one, bad battery. Okay, so one of the things I had in here is I had a bypass, like a security thing basically. So I replaced that, so it basically was just going to the clutch pedal, and you had to push another button after you hit the clutch to make the car start. So I took that out. The other thing, and I see that my buddy tried putting the VATS bypass in there, But this is the wire going to the ignition. And you can see right now it's overloaded, right? But put the key in. See if we can do this while you watch. And boom, we got resistance, and that's the right resistance measure for the key. So the VATS is working, so I can plug that back in as well. But right now, the bad battery could be a problem, obviously. So as you can see, that's working fine, so I can plug that back in, get rid of that bypass. In fact, I really want to see what that's even reading, so go from there. So I was in the house for the night, but my buddy Bry said, have you tried cranking it yet? Because that's one of the problems, it wouldn't crank either. So here we are, we're gonna try it with the jump pack on there since the battery's bad. And we got power, obviously, because I can hear it. Yep, no start, no crank. Wonder if the starter's bad. Okay, so I'm gonna get underneath here with the jump pack and see if I can make the starter bump. Just real quick. All right, so this thing's pretty oil soaked. So it may not work. See if I can get to make this thing work. I don't know. The ground. To hold it there, but we're on. Doesn't seem to have. I think the battery, the starter might be bad. I'll test again with an actual battery, but I'm touching it up there and it doesn't seem to be, on a good enough ground. Yeah, I think maybe the starter might be bad. But we won't know until I actually test it with the battery hooked up. Oh, that wasn't on, was it? Damn it. Okay, let's click in the solenoid. Maybe the Bendix ain't coming out. I don't know. I need a better test than this, I think, to really test it. But at least clicks. I wasn't doing that before, so I don't know. Oh well. All right, so it's the next day. I put the battery from the trailer in here. This is a battery that I originally had in this car. Put a new battery in the remote. See if that unlocks the doors or not. Guess not. Trying to figure out why it ain't cranking and the alarm. Either the remote don't work well. Oh, there it goes. So it just unlocked. See if that changes the cranking problem. Probably didn't, but yep, still no crank. So we need to get a wire down on the starter, see if we can crank it by hand or by switch. And if not, or if it can, then we got to figure out why the wire from the ignition switch to the starter isn't working. Okay, so I got the key on, got the starter switch hooked up. Let's see what happens now. So I cranked for a second, but then this thing is locked up. That ain't good. Well, let's try putting the charger on it and see what happens there. So a little bit of a scare there, almost like the engine locked up. I just took the battery or the belt off and it popped loose, but I don't know. So it's cranking with the trigger now. See what happens when we power it up. We definitely know we're not getting crank signal from the key down there. Hey, it barked off. Look at that, fired up. All right, so we got some messing around to do, but we got the crank, and we know that the crank signal from the key ain't going to the car or to the starter, so we got to work on that. So I think we got some wiring issues on this thing. And oh, we have a broken spark plug over here too. So there's that we got to deal with. Okay, so got something. So I don't know what just happened, but I got the key to start working, and all I did is flip the relay around. Went to crank it, and it backfired something fierce, like it sounded like a bomb going off, but still cranks. So I'm gonna try it again, this time with ear protection. Hopefully it was just a bunch of unburnt fuel that had been being dumped for all this time. Oh man, wow. So nothing else blows up. Wow. Because I'm having a fucking spark plug in there or what? Ooh-wee. I don't know. I wish I could have recorded that one. That would have been good. Yeah, so again, I wish I could have got that explosion on video. I wasn't even thinking about recording at the time, but it was loud. I don't know where it popped from. I mean, it is missing a spark plug right now, and I was just testing the starter. It obviously barked off somewhere, but it was smoking out of the little cutout down there. But I don't know where that explosion came from, but everything seems to be fine on the engine. It still cranks. I see the heater is bypassed, so it must have been getting a leak out there. But the reason it wouldn't crank from the key is this starter cylinder, the starter relay was in backwards, so it wasn't getting the right signal to crank. But I'm sure when they were troubleshooting, it just got put in backwards by mistake. But yeah, overall, it's cranking now from the key. I can't tell if it's getting fuel right now. But something blew. Hopefully it didn't damage the inside. I basically got to figure out if it's getting fuel and getting spark now. So, wow, I wish I could have got that explosion on video. That would have been awesome. All right, so this is kind of a weird scenario. So this relay here, the one I reversed to make the starter work from the key. This one here was the original ignition one. So if you watch that one, well, not watch it, but as you'll see, that cranks. So I can reverse this one. And it still cranks. Oh, nope, that's the one that doesn't crank. Okay. Now this one, I can put in either direction. So I'll start with the opposite of what it was before. So that one, and now it's not working either. Oh, this is driving me nuts. If I reverse it, I get crank. So I don't know what the heck's going on now. Yeah, I don't know. Earlier, one of them worked on both ways, and now neither one, I don't know. They just got some electrical gremlins. That's
just found where that explosion might have come from.
Yeah. Could have been the muffler bulging out. definitely some back pressure somewhere. So maybe I'll just cut that thing back off again while I'm troubleshooting, so it doesn't happen again. That's a good one. So it's possible I may have found where the explosion came from. And look what happened to the muffler. So that might have been just clogged up. There's a crack right there too. That's beyond it, so I don't know. And who knows? There's a hole up there, but that's just because I didn't weld it on top of it. But the next thing I need to do is cut that open and see what it looks like inside. All right, so we're gonna check for spark now. I put the spark plug checker in line from the coil. I think that's to number, let's see, was it 246? That's on number 6. So let's see if it got spark or not. Turn the key on. I'm gonna crank it from the key or from right here. That's definitely got spark, so we got to test each one of them to make sure they all got spark. And I got 2 spark plugs out right now as well, so I bought a new one. They didn't have the NGK, so I got the AC Delco equivalent to replace the one that broke. So let's get that in there and get the other one, put it back in there and see if it makes a difference. We'll test each spark plug wire too to make sure they all fire. As I was putting a new spark plug in, I noticed this right here. Focus. You got a broken wire right there. I don't have schematics and know exactly what that is, but it goes into the computer. So that can't be good. Now I need to check all the rest of them, make sure nothing else is bad there. So, oh boy. There's also a repair I noticed over here on one of these wires right there. So, yeah. This is going to be fun. But at least I see something. God, why won't that focus? There is a broken wire right there. So I just used a spark plug checker on every cylinder, and every cylinder has spark. I think I only saw like one that was a little bit weak, and it was this one right here. So whichever one that goes to, I think it might be 1, 3, or 5 over here. So, but they all had spark. They all were lighting up. So I don't think the ignition module was a problem. Maybe that purple wire over there is broken, might be, who knows. Okay, so I just used my Noid lights to test one of the injector pulses right here. It's number 4. And it lit up, so it was, when I tested it, it actually kicked off too. So I don't know, it didn't start, but it, you know, you could tell it fired and actually kicked over. So, I don't know. I'm gonna try repairing that wire first and before I do any more troubleshooting. Okay, so I got a jumper wire on that now, so let's see what happens when I crank it. Yep, still nothing. So my buddy Brian had somebody look at this out in San Diego. The guy's really good at diagnosing wire diagrams and whatnot. And the ignition module puts out 2 signals. One will allow it to spark. The other will give it a signal to the ECU that says it's sparking and running and will maintain the running at that point. So he said that it's not getting one of the 2 signals it needs from the ignition module. So we got to figure out which one it's not getting and why. So it might just be a bad ignition module, and I'll explain that later. All right, well, here's the repair that was underneath that thick tape. So put a wire in there. And we got this one over here that I'm just jumpering. So I think I gotta dig a little bit deeper into this wire harness by the looks of it. It's still not cranking, or it's cranking, but it's still not starting. So try it from here again. I hate computerized cars. Okay, so I'm gonna try it one more time with the fuel pump hooked back up. Yep, still nothing. Oh boy. All right, let's take a break and get this thing cut open. Tired of dealing with electrical right now. Well, we got it all cut open, and there wasn't a whole lot to show. There wasn't anything blocking anything, so my guess it was just fuel pulled up someplace and it backfired real good, and yep. So, yeah, that's what the inside of the muffler looks like. Pretty crazy. Here's something I haven't broke out in a while. My Chilton's, I think it's a Chilton's. Yeah, Chilton's manual. But it only goes up to 98, and this is a 2000. And I'm looking for the ignition control out of the ECU, and I found it right there, but it's saying pin 50, oh, it is 53. I think it's 54 on the actual computer. What did I do with the light? Dang it, I just had the light. What did I do with it? There it is. So if you look down in here, this is pinned to, it's really hard to focus with this. The white wire is pinned to 54 by the looks of it. Unless somehow the numbers are just off on the plug. So I don't know if it's changed between 98 and 2000 and 2000, because that's what year this Camaro is. But that's the signal I'm looking for, as far as trying to figure out which, where the problem's at. But yeah, at least I have something, some kind of a reference to go by. I gotta see if I can find a newer one and see if it's any different. But they just don't have it in stores anymore. It's crazy. So if you ever want a little more room to work on the engine bay of a 4th gen Camaro, you just take the cowl panel off. So it goes from this to this. It's not a whole lot, but it gives me about 2 more extra inches, so good enough for me. All right, so I pulled the ignition module off so I could ohm out the white wire from the ignition module to the white wire over here at the PCM or the ECU, whatever you want to call it. And those have good 0 ohms, so that's still a good complete circuit on that one. So now I gotta find the next circuit that apparently goes from the ECU to the ignition. So it might be a bad ignition. I don't know. This thing sucks. It is quite possible I may have just found a smoking gun here. I don't know if you can see that or not. You see that pin? Get some light on it. The one on the very end looks a little hot. So I need to figure out what that pin does. Looks like it's got a pink wire, which means, or a red wire, and it's pink wire. So you figure out what the pink wire is coming out of that. It might be power. So if that's burnt like that, let's see if I can get better light on it for you. And for me, to be honest. Yeah, it definitely looks a little charred. I have to de-pin that, take a look at it, make sure it's not. Definitely looks darker than the rest of them, doesn't it? So I might de-pin that just to see, make sure it's still connected to the wire, or how well it's connected to the wire. All right, so I checked the continuity between the PCM, ECU, whatever you want to call it, and the ignition module, and all the wires that go between them all have good continuity. So there's no bad wires between the ignition module and the computer. Now I still need to test the wires from the ignition module to the crank position sensor and the cam position sensor. This burnt wire that we found earlier, it still has power going to it. That's your ignition hot. So when the key's on, that goes hot. And so everything seems to be there and working. Doesn't mean it's good working, but it's working. And, just a lot of these wires need to be reloomed too, because they're just kind of messed up here. So it might be a matter of going through the whole wire harness and just finding the bad ones. I checked grounds too, they're all good. Yeah, so the search continues. All right, so I just got done testing all the wires. So all the wires leading to and from the ignition module have good continuity to where they're supposed to go. So all the ones going to the computer are good. All the ones going to the cam and crank sensor are good. And that's all of them, literally all of them. We do have power coming into it, even though it is dark on that one plug down there. But, so that's leading me back to being a bad ignition module, which really sucks because apparently they just are bad and the aftermarket ones aren't any good. So I might try my luck at a junkyard, see if I can find one that's in a crashed car or something. See if that makes a difference. So, yeah. So luckily, my buddy that was holding this car for me and was troubleshooting a little bit, kept the old ignition module. And as you can see, that pin is definitely burnt. Let me check the new one, make sure it's not burnt. And if it is, you can't see it. Which one is that? So yeah, it'd be this one on this side. I can't really tell. I don't think it is. But this is definitely burnt. So that's probably the problem with this ignition module. All right, so I pulled the pin out just to see how damaged it was. With it being burnt that bad, there's no telling what the wire in the back's gonna be like, or like inside the insulation. I think on Monday, I'm gonna go to the junkyard, see if I can get this whole harness and ignition module from a factory one, and see if I can adapt that in here. So, until Monday. All right, so I really doubt it's the issue, but when I was messing with this, I was pulling it apart, I noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but that's a newer looking coil. And I got it bolted down a little too far. But I noticed when I was pulling these coils off to check the ignition module, that this coil here, when it's plugged in, for one, it's real loose. Like it just plops down on there, and you can see it moving around. So I don't know if that's making good contact, but with the new one, I bought a new one today at O'Reilly's just to test it. You can see where it stops like that far away before you push it down, and it actually makes contact the whole way down. Like it's actually making, like you can tell it's just making better contact. So whether that's the problem or not, I doubt it, but because I'm definitely looking at this pin on this harness here, and it's really hard to see, you know, because it's so small, but it's definitely burnt. So I don't know how burnt it is, whether it's making good contact. It was putting spark out, but it might not be putting out enough spark to tell the computer it's putting out spark. So I don't know. But I went to the junkyard today. They are closed on Mondays, unfortunately, because I'm actually thinking about just buying a whole new harness to replace the entire engine harness, since there's so many breaks and problems with this one. But we'll see. But yeah, that's where we're at. You know, basically just a matter of figuring out whether or not that one pin is causing all those problems, if this coil being loose is causing a problem. I don't know. I think it's a combination of things, and I think it still might be a bad ignition module. You never know. But we'll figure it out. I'm going to cut this video off right here, and I'm going to do a part 2 as far as after I get to the junkyard and see about getting a new ignition module. Well, not new, but an original stock, like GM ignition module. Because we had somebody tell us who's been doing this for a while that aftermarket ignition modules for these cars are pretty much all junk. So you have to just basically replace them until you get the good one. And we did find a burnt pin on the original one that I had on there that I replaced from a couple years ago. So we definitely know, and then we have that burnt pin there. So like I said, I'm gonna go to the junkyard hopefully tomorrow and see if I can find maybe an entire engine harness, or at least that pigtail for the ignition module, so I can rewire that portion because of that one burnt pin. But so if you like this video, go leave a like down here. Leave me a comment. Let me know what I can do better. And subscribe while you're at it. Just remember, y'all are the reason why I'm doing these videos, and I really appreciate y'all watching. So, like I said, we're gonna be a part 2 on continuing this diagnosis on this Camaro. So make sure you stick around for that. Subscribe, turn your notifications on, do all that good stuff. And again, thank you for watching. I appreciate y'all. So until next time, I will see y'all later.